special. So let's max it out. Anyway, hit that first slide if you would for me, CJ. Let me tell you the difference in how people think. And I'm going to give you 10 principles. And you might want to take a couple of notes on some of this, because all this that I'm sharing with you this morning has been learned. Like I said, I didn't come here thinking the right way. And I want to tell you what I've learned, and maybe it can help some of you to think the right way. Here's what the rich people say. I create my life, and the poor people say life happens. Well, you got to start to be an initiator. Create. If you came from a job, you were a work processor. They told you what to do. They told you when to show up. They told you when to go home. They told you how much money you're going to get paid. And they told you if you got a 1 week or 2 week paid vacation. You processed. You didn't create work. Here, I get to create my day. I get to decide I want to have coffee with Gina, and that's to just talk in the morning. She decides we're going to go work out, so we get on the treadmill because my wife told me to. But there's so many neat things. And then throughout the day, I get to pick and choose what I prioritize in. You want to be where you create. That's the first thing. Second slide, that the millionaires think. Go ahead and hit that one if you would for me, CJ. The rich people play the money game to win. The poor people play not to lose. We've probably all seen this in a sporting event. A team gets ahead. They start playing defensively because they're afraid. Oh my goodness, we got a lead. Let's not lose. And they lose the edge. And we've seen other teams come from behind. They call them comebacks in sports. What happened? They may have had the same players. Their thinking changed. Instead of playing to win all out, going nuts, they decided, let's play a little defensive on not to lose. If you're going to win, not only the money game, but in life, you need to think aggressively. You need to think abundance. You need to play to win, not to lose. Third slide, hit that if you would for me, CJ. The rich people are committed to being rich. The poor just have a wish list. Gang, this talks about your goals. I can tell you specifically what our goals are June 13, 2013. They've been thought of, they've been analyzed, they've been prayed over. We've talked about them, we've discussed them, we've tweaked them. We have a specific game plan. In the same way, our founder, Art Williams, read the book Think and Grow Rich, and he made a commitment to be rich. He called it financially independent. From reading that book, he said, I had my plan. I was making $30,000 a year teaching and coaching. I thought, therefore, for me to be totally financially independent, I needed to have a pile of money that was $300,000. He went on to say if I could get a 10% return on that money, that would give me $30,000, and nobody could put their thumb on me ever for the rest of my life. He was committed to being totally financially independent. You need to do the same thing. Randy, probably the scary thing, both in your audience in Atlanta and our audience here in Dallas, is that there's people in our own audience that haven't even made that commitment yet to be financially independent. You're not going to get there unless you first commit to be financially independent. Don't be in that poor cat, I want to be financially independent, or I would like to be rich. Commit. Put a plan down. Do your homework. CJ, go ahead and hit the file number 4 if you would for me. Rich people think big. Poor people think small. I can tell you exactly where I was when I started to think rich. I was going up I-35 to an Oklahoma football game with my father, and I was 35 years old. I read a book, changed my life. It was called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And as I read that book, I said, Craig, why have you been thinking small all your life? Small doesn't inspire anybody. Small doesn't move anybody. Small never accomplishes anything. Why are you thinking small? And I can tell you why it was It was my own fears and insecurities that kept me thinking small. Because that way I wouldn't get hurt. I only know one way to do something big. It starts with a thought. You got to think doing something big. I was telling our crew here in Dallas, right before we went on live, you know, one of the great stories in the Bible that talks about money is a story that Jesus is telling about the talents and how certain people are passed out certain talents. You could call those gifts, you could call that whatever, but today, if you're given 1 talent, 2 talents, 5 talents, 10 talents, use what the good Lord gave you and you'll multiply those. He actually said the one that had 10 talents, he doubled those. He said, give him 10 more because he's going to use them the right way. But the one that he only gave 1, he was fearful, so he buried his talent. And the Lord called him wicked and slothful and said, bury it? Why didn't you at least put it in the bank so I could have a little bit of interest when I came back? So I had to think of my own thinking and thinking, why have I been thinking so? But I made a decision. And that's all it was. I made a decision at 35. I'm going to start thinking big. That's one of the things I have really loved and appreciated about Randy. He thought much bigger, much quicker than me. That's why I know his influence has been huge. I've been able to copy some of the things he's done right. But I tell you what, gang, think big. CJ, hit that next slide for me if you would, buddy. Number 5, the rich focus on opportunities. The poor, they focus on all their obstacles. It's an abundance mentality. What can happen? We dream a lot in Dallas. We said, what could happen when we put 200 people in team attendance in our meeting on Tuesday night? Standing room only. People can't get in. They gotta just put a little corner and pick up a little piece of the carpet because there's no place to go. We think about why not. We're focusing on the opportunity. So what do? We broke out a wall. I said the current room we could only have about 100, maybe 125. Now we can put 200 people in that room. Why not? Let's focus on what we can do, not the obstacles. That's what you may have heard this. That's what people do when they take their eyes off their goals. They see all the obstacles. Hey, let me tell you something. I got just as many obstacles as anybody else. Randy Godfrey's got just as many obstacles as anybody sitting in that chair in Atlanta. He just doesn't dwell on that. He knows how to handle those obstacles better. He thinks differently. That's what makes him great. But here's what's exciting for everybody. You can learn how to think right. I did. You can too. You can start focusing on the opportunities, not just the obstacles. Hit that next slide for me if you would, CJ. I'm going to go real quick to our next RVP, Leo Garcia. He and his wife Jennifer, unbelievable story. When I met Leo, he was, as he would say, doing everything wrong. He was a butcher at Tom Thumb. He was broke. He was going to the clubs. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any future. He wasn't investing any money. And he just didn't take any nice vacations. I mean, he just had the average life because that's what he was believed, told, and thought. That's all I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be a butcher. But I've watched him change his thinking. He doesn't think like he did when I met him. He thinks totally different. So he could also say, I'm the poster child for changing my thinking. I want you to hear from him because he's going to be our next vice president. As you can see on the presentation, he got his jacket. So that's the Pioneer. We now call it the Future. This guy is head in place. He knows how to create a team environment. He knows how to get people excited. And Art Williams said, 90% of winning is being excited.